People believe freedom was handed to me at birth. They imagine palaces, guards, wealth, influence, and assume choice came with it. But the truth is this freedom was the first thing royal life took from me, not violently, not suddenly. Freedom was removed with precision, with patience, with smiles. And that is why it took me so long to realize it was who I must never become. Inside the palace, childhood is not about curiosity, it is about correction. Every instinct is shaped, every impulse redirected, every question softened before it becomes dangerous. I was never asked what I wanted to be. I was taught what was acceptable to become. People see discipline and think strength. They see silence and think wisdom. What they don't see is the slow erosion of self that happens when expression is constantly filtered. I learned how to sit still for long periods, how to listen without reacting, how to speak without revealing anything real. My voice was trained to sound calm even when my mind was screaming. And when people praised that calmness, I mistook it for approval of me, when in reality it was approval of my compliance. Royal life teaches you something very dangerous, that obedience is maturity. The more you suppress yourself, the more you are trusted. The less you ask, the more you are respected. The quieter you become, the safer everyone feels. And slowly you internalize that message. You begin to fear your own emotions. You begin to question your own instincts. You begin to apologize for your own humanity. Nothing inside the palace happens freely. Even happiness must be appropriate. Even sadness must be contained. Even love must be evaluated. Who does it involve? What does it imply? How will it be perceived? Love without calculation is considered reckless. Joy without restraint is considered immature. Eventually, you stop feeling first. You analyze first. That is how freedom disappears. I didn't notice it when my education was decided for me. I told myself it was opportunity. I didn't notice it when my schedule was planned months in advance. I told myself it was structure. I didn't notice it when my opinions were redirected. I told myself it was guidance. That is how control survives, by convincing you it is necessary. Privacy inside the palace does not exist the way people imagine. You are always seen, always heard, always interpreted. Your silences are analyzed, your expressions remembered, your hesitations discussed. You learn quickly that being unguarded is unsafe, so you build walls inside yourself, and those walls become permanent. The most painful realization was not that my actions were limited. It was that my inner life was being shaped. I noticed how I hesitated before speaking even when I was alone, how I edited thoughts that would never leave my mind, how I felt guilt for wanting things that harmed no one. That is when I understood something terrifying. Control had moved inside me. Royal life does not need to monitor you forever. If it trains you well, you monitor yourself. You silence yourself. You restrain yourself. You shrink yourself. And you call it discipline. There were moments when something inside me resisted. A quiet discomfort. A sense that something essential was missing. But discomfort is inconvenient in a system built on order. So I learned to dismiss it. I told myself that freedom was overrated, that purpose mattered more, that sacrifice was noble. I repeated those beliefs until they sounded like truth. Freedom does not vanish in one moment. It fades. It fades when your opinions stop being invited, when your choices are reframed as risks, when your life starts happening around you instead of through you. One day, you wake up admired, respected, protected, and completely absent from your own existence. The palace teaches endurance. It teaches you how to carry pressure without complaint, how to stand still while expectations weigh on your spine, how to smile while parts of you quietly suffocate. And people call that strength. They never ask what it costs. The moment that changed everything for me was quiet. Someone asked me what I wanted, not what was appropriate, not what was strategic, what I wanted, and I couldn't answer, not because I lacked desire, but because I had never been allowed to explore it safely. That silence terrified me, because it meant I had lived inside comfort without agency. Freedom requires practice. Choice requires experience, and I had been protected from both. I realized then that my life had been carefully curated, not for my fulfillment, but for stability, and stability demands sacrifice. The sacrifice was freedom. Breaking free did not mean rebellion. It meant awareness. It meant recognizing that a life lived entirely through expectation will always feel incomplete. I began reclaiming small things, thoughts without permission, emotions without justification, moments without performance. At first, it felt wrong. Then it felt necessary. I stopped measuring myself by approval, stopped shrinking to preserve comfort around me, and slowly something unfamiliar returned. Presence. Royal life gave me discipline, it gave me perspective, it gave me resilience, but it did not give me freedom. That I had to claim quietly. This is not a rejection of where I come from. It is an acknowledgement of what it cost, because legacy should not require self-erasure, and loyalty should not demand imprisonment. Royal life destroyed my freedom, not because it was cruel, but because it valued control more than humanity. And once you see that truth, you cannot unsee it. Today, I move differently, not recklessly, not rebelliously, but consciously. I choose presence over performance, truth over comfort, awareness over obedience. Freedom does not always look loud. Sometimes it looks like finally listening to your own voice and refusing to silence it again. And for the first time in my life, I am doing exactly that.